Is Steffi ignorant of an odd change in Finn in Bold and the Beautiful? Hi everyone, welcome back to Beautiful Today, my channel. Before we start the video, I hope everyone is enjoying their day. Kindly give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. Larkin, Maggie, November 7, 2024. The Beautiful and Bold has Steffy Forrester is likely too preoccupied with a more important task on the CBS these days to notice anything about Finn's actions. Finn's lack of interest in things tends to go unnoticed because she grew so focused on making the world the way she wants it. Brave and gorgeous, Steffy Forrester is dealing with a yes man. Steffy Forrester's Jacqueline McSinswood husband was always readily influenced by her on Bold and the Beautiful. He would nevertheless express his viewpoint, even if it was different from hers. However, Tanner Novlan's character John Finnegan no longer seems to have an opinion of his own, particularly when talking to his wife about a subject. Finn didn't appear to feel bad about Hope Logan, Annika Noel, even though she kissed him without permission. He also admitted to Steffi that Hope was humiliated by the event, and that ever since, her behavior has been proper around him. However, if his wife railroads the Logan daughter, he doesn't appear to care anymore. When Hope Logan, wearing lingerie, fell on him, he left. He left everything in Steffi's hands instead. After a difficult day of firing Hope and dealing with the immediate fallout, Steffi returns home to see her husband in Wednesday's episode. Steffi was the main source of their rather one-sided communication. Finn simply concurred with his wife's statements. When he began questioning her, Steffi assured John Finnegan that she didn't blame him for the situation. She maintained that Hope Logan was solely to blame. However, the Bold and Beautiful fans were surprised by his response when she mentioned firing Hope. B&B spoilers. Is Finn worn down or distracted? Viewers of Bold and the Beautiful witnessed Hope's accident. Wearing an alluring piece of lingerie, she emerged from behind the screen. Then she stumbled and collided into Finn. However, her greeting ought to have been sufficient indication that it wasn't him she was expecting before she even made contact with him. She claimed to have waited for him, but Finn must have realized that she hadn't. The Logan daughter had no way of knowing that Finn would arrive. To keep his presence a secret, he stopped briefly to drop off his wife's tablet. Hope intended to perform her lingerie scene for Lawrence St. Victor's character, Carter Walton. John Finnegan had the opportunity to clarify this at the moment, but he chose to vanish instead. When Steffy Forrester informed him that she had fired Hope Logan, he was given another shot at home. However, all he did was raise his eyebrows. John Finnegan simply followed Steffi's lead when she began to talk about how liberated she felt now. What's going on with Finn now? According to several fans of Bold and the Beautiful, he's behaving preoccupied. Others question whether Steffi's orders have worn him down to the point where he is numb to them all. After first insisting that he avoid his birth mother, his wife has now forbidden him from seeing Hope. Spoilers for Bold and the Beautiful. Was there a twist coming or did Steffi break him? Finn was manipulated by Steffy Forrester in Bold and the Beautiful. At last, he consented to avoid Sheila Carter, Kimberlyn Brown. Additionally, Hope Logan is currently prohibited, so his wife has created a list for him. When his wife puts someone off limits, she always gets her way with Finn. Finn may have finally grown tired of her shenanigans. He doesn't appear to be listening this week as Steffy Forrester babbles on about her issues with her stepsister. More significantly, he allows Hope to suffer this injustice even though he possesses the solution. Finn and his wife are still in a romantic relationship, but their communication style has changed. This may be the quiet before the storm, according to some Bold and the Beautiful fans. Others then advise him to ignore his wife's harassment. If so, though, it won't last long. The reappearance of Luna Nozawa, played by Lisa Yamada, next week could be the final straw. She is the ailing and troubled cousin of Finn. Therefore, Steffi might put her on the list of individuals he cannot associate with. even though he might still want to see her. Perhaps he wakes up when someone else is added to his list. Brave and gorgeous Finn has changed, and some viewers believe Steffy Forrester wore him down. Or he is distracted from his wife's problems by something in life. Others speculate that there may be a twist in the wind, perhaps as a result of Steffy Forrester's bullying finally catching up with her. B&B fans believe that in order to maintain harmony on CBS, John Finnegan finally takes a stand and revokes all of the directives he has previously obeyed. The Bold and the Beautiful is full with tension, intrigue, and surprising turns. Every character, from the ferocious and impassioned to the quiet and reflective, is always negotiating difficult interpersonal connections, personal development, and heartbreaking conundrums. The relationship between Steffy Forrester and Dr. John Finnegan has become one of the more interesting dynamics in recent years. Their story has been anything but typical. It has been full of happiness, heartache, and seemingly insurmountable challenges. However, things are never as ideal as they appear, as is the case with many soap opera relationships. As Steffy starts to perceive a strange, disturbing change in Finn, a sinister cloud hangs over their relationship. An unknown mystery that Steffy is still unable to comprehend threatens what began as a fairy tale romance. This story will examine Finn's enigmatic metamorphosis, Steffy's developing worries, and the ramifications for their future. The Quiet Before the Storm, Chapter 1. All of Steffy Forrester's desires were fulfilled. A spouse who loved her, a successful career, and a lovely family. With Finn, Steffy had at last found stability and serenity after a turbulent past full of loss and heartache. From Steffy's past romances to Finn's unexpected return to her life, the two had been through many ups and downs together. For a while, it seemed as though their love had overcome everything, and that they could face any obstacle together with unshakable support. As they navigated parenting with their small son, Hayes, and grew closer as a marriage, Steffy and Finn had been inseparable. As always, Steffy was a driven and ambitious woman who had to juggle the obligations of parenthood and her relationship with her work at Forrester Creations. As the nice, kind doctor, Finn gave Steffy compliments she never would have imagined. They had a strong bond that seemed to go beyond all of their previous transgressions, and their chemistry was obvious. Things are rarely as perfect as they appear, though, as is the case with all great love stories. Steffy's outwardly flawless existence has small fractures starting to show beneath the surface. Steffy had no idea that Finn was changing, that his thoughts, his actions, even his emotions were changing. At first, it was hardly perceptible, just minor strangenesses that Steffy dismissed as stress or life's inevitable ups and downs. However, the discrepancies grew with time, and Steffy's once certain world began to fall apart. Chapter 2. The Inconspicuous Change. The simplest of adjustments were made first. Finn, who had been so kind and attentive, started to distance himself. Little things, like their son's developmental milestones or their weekend plans, would slip his mind. Steffy initially believed it was simply the strain of being a new parent. She was prepared to give Finn the benefit of the doubt because she knew how exhausting life with a newborn might be. However, it grew more difficult to ignore the indications as the days stretched into weeks. During chats, he grew aloof. The infectious quality of his laughter has been replaced with a forced quality. The affection he used to offer her, the warmth in his gaze, appeared to wane with each second that went by. Something was strange, but Steffy couldn't quite put her finger on it. He would dismiss her question with an evasive response, saying it was simply fatigue or work-related stress. Although Steffy wanted to believe him, she had a sneaking suspicion that there was more to it. It was more than simply the emotional disengagement. Finn's physical demeanor also appeared to shift. Steffy observed that he was sleeping more and appeared disengaged, as if his thoughts were elsewhere while they were together. Awkward silences and hesitant gestures have taken the place of the intensity that had characterized their relationship. The man who had previously won her over with his romantic gestures and generosity, Finn, now appeared to be a shell of the person he used to be. Steffy found herself becoming increasingly worried as the days passed. Being in sync with her loved ones, particularly Finn, had always been something she took great delight in. They had always been able to speak freely and honestly with one another. However, it seemed as though Steffy was unable to completely break through the barrier that separated them. She was troubled by Finn's odd behavioral changes, emotional detachment, and lack of communication. Chapter 3. The Enigma Expands. After a meeting at Forrester Creations one evening, Steffy was excited to see Finn and Hayes when she got home. She was instantly struck by the uncanny silence as soon as she entered their house. Their son's laughter was not audible, and the lights were muted. Steffy discovered Finn sitting by himself in the living room, staring at the TV with a blank expression. He didn't appear to notice her arrival. With a hint of worry in her voice, Steffy called gently. With a blank expression, Finn gently moved his head in her direction. "Hey, Steffy. How did your day go?" Observing the lack of passion in his voice, Steffy scowled. "I thought we were going to have a family night, but it was okay. Where is Hayes?" Finn said absently, He's with my mom," as his eyes returned to the TV. "I think he was getting tired." Steffy had a twinge of unease. She didn't know this Finn. "What's up with you, Finn? You've been behaving rather oddly lately. Something is wrong, but I'm not sure what it is." Finn's eyes flickered uncertainly as he hesitated. "Steph, I'm just exhausted. I'm doing my hardest." However, Steffy wasn't happy with that response. "Weary? You've been tired for weeks now, Finn. What is actually happening? You're not like this." Finn got to his feet suddenly, his annoyance leaking out. "Hey, nothing's happening. I just have a few things to cope with. I'd rather not discuss it." Steffy felt her heart sink. Something more profound was at work here than simple fatigue or stress. However, what? Furthermore, why wouldn't Finn tell her? He was obviously concealing something, but he wasn't prepared to talk about it. Steffy experienced a deep sensation of loneliness for the first time in their relationship. Chapter 4. Looking for Solutions. When things didn't feel right, Steffy wasn't one to stand by and do nothing. She was a proactive woman who didn't hesitate to investigate further when she felt something wasn't right. Finn's transformation was more than a passing phase. It was a metamorphosis she couldn't ignore. However, what might be bringing about this change? Her initial thought was to speak with Finn's relatives. In an attempt to learn more about Finn's behavior, she contacted Lee Finnegan, his adoptive mother. Lai, who was generally the calm, dignified woman, was worried too. Although she had observed Finn's peculiar conduct, she was unable to identify the reason. She did, however, note that Finn had been experiencing a lot of stress recently, particularly at work. Was that, however, sufficient to account for the significant changes in him? The next thing Steffy did was go to Finn's clinic, where he was a well-known physician. She wanted to talk to his coworkers there and see what might be happening behind the scenes. Speaking with a few of his colleagues, she discovered that Finn had been aloof and preoccupied at work, frequently dozing off during processes or overlooking crucial information. A few of his coworkers had even voiced worries about his health. However, none of them appeared to understand the reason behind the shift in his behavior. Steffy had never been more confused. Since she knew Finn the best, she could see that this wasn't a passing phase. He had a serious problem, but he refused to talk about it. Her concern turned into a silent despair. What might have been going on in Finn's life to have him distance himself from her? And why was he unable to communicate with her in the same manner as before? Chapter 5. The Reality is Revealed. Eventually, the truth would surface in a dramatic and surprising fashion, as it usually does in soap operas. Steffy sensed a weird presence behind her one evening while she was sitting in their living room, looking at a picture of her, Finn, and Hayes. When she turned around, she saw Finn standing in the doorway, with a determined and sad expression on his face. "Steffy," he remarked in a steady but quiet voice, "there's something I need to tell you." Steffy's heart was pounding. The moment she had been anticipating had finally arrived. Finn was about to reveal himself. "It's been difficult for me to say this," Finn added, regret shining in his eyes. "I've been hiding something from you, though, something that has long been bothering me." As Steffy stepped closer to him, her stomach fell. "What's going on, Finn? Just tell me, please." Tears filled Finn's eyes. "I thought I had buried something from my history, but I've been dealing with it. However, it has now come back to haunt me. I've been pushing you away because I don't know how to handle it." As Steffy tried to take in what he had said, her thoughts raced. "What are you saying? What's from your past?" Finn inhaled deeply, speaking hardly louder than a whisper. "Steffy, I'm not who you believe me to be. You have no idea how terrible my past is, and I have been working hard to hide it from you. However, I can no longer." Steffy could never have imagined how shocking the information would be. Finn had been keeping something from her, a secret so painful and profound that it had changed him, made him distance himself from the woman he loved. However, what was this secret? What had Finn spent so much time concealing? That their relationship was at a turning point as she met Finn's eyes. Their love had always been based on open communication, honesty, and trust. That foundation, however, was suddenly being put to the test in ways Steffy had never anticipated. Would everything they had fought for be destroyed by Finn's confession? Or could their relationship endure even the most sinister secrets? In conclusion, uncertain of what lay ahead for her and Finn, Steffy stood on a brink. Once subtle and enigmatic, the shift in him had now grown into a profound and agonizing realization that threatened to destroy everything they had worked so hard to achieve. Steffy was forced to face the prospect that the guy she loved might not be who she believed him to be after Finn's long-hidden past began to surface. But Steffy would not abandon their love without a battle, that much was certain. Although Steffy was aware that the road ahead would be challenging and full of unpleasant realities and uncertainty, she was resolved to meet it head-on. No matter what secrets Finn had kept concealed, she would support him for better or worse. Although the future was uncertain, Steffy was prepared to face whatever was ahead because she had love, a strong will, and the belief that she and her partner could conquer any challenge. Their love was just getting started on the real test. Power, beauty, and ambition have always been embodied by Steffy Forrester. Being a major contributor at Forrester Creations, she has become one of the most powerful women in the fashion industry thanks to her charisma and ambition. Her life has taken many unexpected turns over the years, including heartbreak, atonement, and complex romantic relationships. But one thing Steffy has always kept above all else, in spite of the ups and downs, is control. She is a formidable presence in the boardroom and in her personal life due to her strength, independence, and resolve. But Steffy's entire life is about to be upended. Strong personalities who question her choices, encourage her to improve, and challenge her have always been around her. What occurs, though, when the person closest to her, the one who ought to be her equal and partner, becomes a shadow of the man he used to be? What if he no longer challenges her? What if all he's turned into is a yes man? This is the tale of Steffy Forrester's battle with her husband, Dr. John Finn Finnegan, and his sudden change. Steffy finds herself doubting everything, including her marriage, her profession, and even her identity, after he changed from the passionate, self-assured guy she married to the comfortable, amiable man he has become. What occurs when a powerful woman who is accustomed to obtaining whatever she desires suddenly recognizes that what she believed to be love may actually be a prison she created for herself? Chapter 1. What appeared to be the ideal life. All of Steffy Forrester's desires were fulfilled. A wonderful family, a prosperous profession at Forrester Creations, and a husband who had captured her heart after a difficult past full of heartache. She had witnessed treachery, love, loss, and the unwavering resolve to triumph despite it all. With Finn at her side, she believed that the stormy days were over, even though she had endured enough personal upheaval to last a lifetime. There was an instant connection between Steffy and Finn, an unmistakable chemistry that caught them both off guard. After experiencing a string of turbulent relationships, Steffy found Finn to be a welcome change. In a way that no one else had before shown, he was considerate, polite, and appeared to truly care about her. He had no secret motive and didn't play games. Finn was the person Steffy had been waiting for. Their romance quickly grew. Steffy was enchanted by Finn's sweet disposition and everlasting commitment from the moment they became a couple. Despite their ups and downs, they felt a genuine and grounded connection. In every aspect, they were partners, raising their son, Hayes, together, juggling their jobs, and helping one another through every challenge life presented. However, as the months passed, a change started to occur. At first, it was subtle, little instances where Finn stopped questioning Steffy's choices and speaking out like he used to. Although he had always been somewhat of a mediator, it seemed as though his quiet was starting to become a habit in both his personal and professional lives. Steffy didn't give it much thought at first. He was a doctor after all. He was busy, and a shift in his conduct might readily be explained by the stress of his job. But as time passed, Steffy saw an unsettling pattern. Finn wasn't simply quiet. He was turning into a yes man. Chapter 2: The Quiet Accord. Little things were the first. Ever the achiever, Steffy was accustomed to being in command. Steffy's voice had weight at Forrester Creations. When she spoke, people for second-guessing or weak opinions, and Finn, who had always been on her side, had never been the kind to argue with her. However, things were starting to feel different. Not only was Finn no longer challenging her choices, he was not even sharing his opinions. After a long day at work, Steffy came home one evening to discover Finn reading a medical journal while relaxing on the couch. As usual, the strain of the job had been high, and she had spent the day making crucial decisions on the next collection. She needed to discuss some of her ideas with him in order to get his opinion. She grinned at him as she entered the living room. Eager to share suggestions with him, she continued, "Finn, I've been considering some changes we could make to the next line. What are your thoughts?" Finn didn't even raise his gaze from his notebook. "Yes, of course, whatever you believe." Startled, Steffy blinked. "Whatever I think? What do you mean? I would like your opinion. This is significant." He finally looked her in the eye and put down his journal. "Steffy, you're doing fantastic. I have faith in your judgment. Whatever you choose will work." Steffy hesitated at something in his voice. He wasn't the Finn she had married, the Finn who would have been thrilled to push her, to help her hone her ideas, to provide an alternative viewpoint. Rather, he was merely passively agreeing while reclining. It was his entire manner, not just what he said. Nothing she said seemed to pique his interest. He was not interested in learning more about her opinions. "Finn, I don't want a yes man," Steffy stated, her voice growing irritated. "I need someone who can challenge me and keep up with me." Finn's expression remained composed despite his confusion. "All I'm saying is that I have faith in you. You excel in your field." Steffy gazed at him, attempting to determine whether he was truly that uninterested or whether there was more going on. However, he appeared to be okay with everything. Chapter 3: The Fundamental Issue. Steffy started to understand that this wasn't a coincidence as the days passed. Finn was acting differently. The once strong, opinionated man who had challenged her in constructive arguments suddenly appeared happy to let her take charge without raising any objections. Steffy initially believed it to be a phase. It might have been stress. Perhaps he was worn out. However, it was becoming increasingly obvious that this was a pattern rather than merely fatigue. Once a partner, Finn was now just someone who agreed with whatever Steffy said and did. She was more troubled by this than she wanted to acknowledge. Strong partnerships were nothing new to Steffy. She had always flourished in settings where diverse personalities and points of view were present, and her family, especially her father, Forrester, was a continuous influence in her life. However, Finn was no longer a partner on an equal footing. He was becoming into a yes man who only nodded in agreement with whatever Steffy decided, a passive witness. Steffy had always been a woman who yearned for respect, not only from her boyfriend, but also from her family and coworkers. She wasn't going to allow her relationship with Finn to become just another arena where she had to do all the heavy lifting because she had worked hard to get here. She desired to live her life with a person who would push her, who could offer new perspectives, and who could support her development. But Finn was doing just the opposite. The silent rift in Chapter 4. The emotional gap between Steffy and Finn widened over the course of the following weeks. Every discussion seemed to center on her choices, objectives, and aspirations. Steffy grew increasingly irritated with Finn as he ceased to express his thoughts. Every time she had attempted to start a conversation with him, it had ended with Finn agreeing with her without contributing his own ideas or emotions. Steffy made the decision to speak with Finn one evening following yet another depressing exchange. She had to know what was happening and why he had stopped being active. He was sitting on the bed in their bedroom, looking through his phone when she found him. "Finn," she said firmly, "we need to talk." He smiled softly as he glanced up at her. "How about?" Steffy gestured between them and said, "This. Your behavior has changed recently. I feel as though I'm speaking to a wall." Finn's grin wavered. "What you mean is unclear to me. Steffy, I'm here for you."
Staring down at
You
him,
are aware of
Steffy
that. Crossed her arms. "A yes man is not what I want. I'm looking for a relationship. I'm looking for someone who pushes me to improve and challenges me. You simply concur with whatever I say. Why?" Finn paused and furrowed his brow. "I'm only trying to help you, Steffy. You have a lot on your plate. I don't need to make your life any more stressful." Incredulous, Steffy shook her head. "I don't want that. Finn, I want you to be who you are, my spouse, the man who could argue with me and yet love me in the end, who had his own views, and who did not back down from me when needed." What became of him? Although Finn's face softened, his eyes still had a detached look. "I suppose I've just been attempting to ease your burden. Steffy, you're always so resilient, and I don't want to put you under any more stress." Steffy felt her heart sink. The man who had challenged her was no longer him. The man who had been her equal was no longer him. She no longer recognized Finn, who was prepared to sacrifice himself in order to maintain harmony. Chapter 5. A novel situation. Steffy was at a turning point in her life. Strong, equitable partnerships were the cornerstone of her life for years, both in business and in romantic relationships. She was now confronted with a harsh reality. She didn't know how to correct the imbalance in her relationship with Finn. Steffy did not respect the yes man Finn had turned into. She didn't require someone to merely concur with her choices. She required somebody who could see her, push her, and develop with her. However, Finn had changed into a different person who didn't align with that vision. Steffy began to wonder if this relationship could last in its current form. As the days went by, Steffy had to confront an unsettling reality. She was no longer able to act as though nothing was wrong. She had lost the man she had fallen in love with, the one who had pushed her and given her a sense of purpose. A man who was more than willing to say yes took his place. Steffy couldn't help but question whether she was too responsible for letting him assume this role. Had she given him too much pressure, or had her overwhelming presence caused him to simply lose himself? Whether Steffy could find a way to win back the man she loved, or if she would have to carry on her own without him, will only become clear in time. Dr. John Finn Finnegan has long been regarded as a man of integrity, calmness, and loyalty to those he loves. He has been a loving, caring husband and father to Steffy Forrester, juggling his demanding work as a doctor with his dedication to his family. After years of personal struggle and family strife, Finn had at last found security and serenity. With her ambitious personality and complicated past, Steffy presented Finn with a new challenge, which he accepted eagerly. However, as is true of all soap operas, perfection is fleeting. Fans of the bold and the beautiful have recently started to observe a change in Finn's conduct. It appears that an invisible force is causing what was once a strong, self-assured person who supported Steffy through thick and thin to crumble. While some fans think Finn is just exhausted by the intensity of his love with Steffy and the Forrester family, others suggest that he is distracted by the demands of his personal or professional life. The concerns are growing. Is Finn just preoccupied, finding it difficult to balance all of his obligations, or has the stress of it all finally worn him down? And how will Steffy react when she begins to suspect that the guy she loves may not be who she believes him to be? Steffy is a woman who feeds on control and the strength of her relationships. Chapter 1. A Changing Relationship. Steffy was unable to completely ignore the first indications of problems, which were subtle moments in Finn's behavior. They were subtle but telling. A casual remark here, a sidelong glance there. Steffy initially attempted to ignore it, writing off his sporadic lack of focus as normal work-related stress. Finn was a well-respected physician, after all, and hospital work might be draining. However, Finn's distance grew more difficult to ignore with time. It was as though the man who had once been so there for her, the one who encouraged her in all of her decisions, supported her throughout her professional victories, and was constantly watching over their son, Hayes, was slipping into the background. Little things were the first. Following a demanding workday at Forrester Creations, Steffy anticipated that Finn would greet her home with a kind grin, a kiss, and an update on their day. Rather, she would discover him on the couch, either immersed in work-related paperwork or staring blankly at the TV. Finn's answers to her questions about his day were evasive and inconclusive. He wasn't actually present, not that he observed that his gaze would frequently stray during discussions. Finn would react absently, as if his mind were elsewhere, whenever they discussed their son, their future, or their weekend plans. She was accustomed to Finn listening intently and always contributing insightful remarks that deepened their discussions. He seemed to be thinking differently today, though, and Steffy was unable to determine why. Steffy continued with her hectic routine in spite of her mounting worries. She had learned long ago that no matter what, she had to keep going. Raising Hayes wasn't simple, and she had to concentrate on her profession. However, she felt uneasy no matter how much she gave her job or parenthood her all. Once so confident and solid, Finn had begun to feel alienated. Was he overwhelmed, or was he preoccupied with something else in his life? More concerningly, was he emotionally separating from her? Chapter 2. The Stress of Juggling Everything. Finn was always a balanced man. He was devoted to Steffy and their family and careful in his work as a physician. However, he was starting to feel the strain of both his personal and professional obligations. Finn was accustomed to the pressure of saving lives, making important choices, and putting in long hours as a doctor. He frequently had to spend a lot of time away from home due to his work at the hospital, particularly during emergencies or difficult surgery. However, what started off as a typical workday seemed to turn into something more demanding. The pressure to achieve at the greatest level occupied his mind, and he found himself more and more mired in paperwork and late-night shifts. Anybody may become ill from that kind of stress. Meanwhile, Finn had to deal with personal problems that he hadn't expected. There had always been tension and strife in his relationship with Sheila Carter, his biological mother. Sheila continued to cause Finn trouble, even though he had made an effort to avoid her. It had grown tiresome to always struggle emotionally between wanting to keep his boundaries and feeling compelled to comprehend his mother's perverse intentions. Finn couldn't get rid of the perplexity and shame that came with being associated with someone as toxic as Sheila, even though Steffy had been encouraging. Then Steffy came along. Despite his affection for her, Finn was starting to feel as though he couldn't keep up with her. Steffy has always been a strong, self-reliant, and ambitious lady. She had a difficult job at Forrester Creations, and she frequently put her work before everything else. Although he appreciated Steffy's drive, Finn occasionally felt overpowered by her exuberant demeanor and unrelenting drive for achievement. Sometimes he questioned whether he was just not enough for her, whether his quiet, collected demeanor was starting to weigh more heavily on her than it did on her fire. Finn's internal struggle was wearing him out. He was torn between his commitments to his job, his love for Steffy, and his unsolved familial problems. It was getting harder for him to maintain the relationship with the same zeal he had previously had, and the weight of it all was starting to impair his judgment. Chapter 3. Growing Concern for Steffy. Steffy started to notice the growing distance between them as the days passed. She had always taken great satisfaction in her ability to read people, especially the guy she loved. The more she tried to ignore it, the more it appeared to take over her mind. She had noticed the change in Finn's conduct. Steffy attempted to confront Finn about it one evening. She had managed a new collection and met with clients at Forrester Creations during the day, but her thoughts kept returning to her husband. It was getting difficult for her to ignore the fact that something was wrong. Finn was reading a medical journal while seated on the couch in the living room when she entered. "Finn," Steffy muttered quietly as she sat down beside him. "We need to talk." He gave her a quick glance before turning back to the journal. "Sure, what's on your mind?" Steffy was more offended by the cavalier response than she had anticipated. "Recently, I've seen something. You have been aloof, more preoccupied than normal. What's happening?" With a sigh, Finn put the journal down, but Steffy could see by the look in his eyes that he wasn't ready to share. "Steffy, I've simply been busy. There has been a lot of work lately. Additionally, juggling everything else made Steffy's heart sink. His statement seemed prepared, and he was not looking at me. She was the one who knew Finn the best. She could tell when he was concealing something. "Finny, you're not just busy. You're staying away from me. You're staying away from us." With weary eyes, Finn finally turned to face her. "Steffy, I'm not avoiding you. All I'm trying to do is keep things under control. My goal is to be a good doctor, a decent husband, and a good father. Sometimes it's just difficult." Steffy was quiet for a while as he tried to comprehend what he had spoken. She sensed that Finn had already emotionally closed down, but she still wanted to reach out to him, to mend whatever had been damaged between them. With a soft yet firm tone, Steffy said, "Finn, you don't have to do it all alone. We work as a team. You can speak with me. I'm available to you." However, Finn merely nodded while grinning weakly. "Steffy, I understand. I don't want to cause you any trouble. You already have too much on your plate." Steffy could sense her anger building. "That's the issue, Finn. We're meant to be partners, but you don't want to bother me. It's not necessary for you to bear anything alone." Steffy realized she had touched a chord when Finn's face stiffened. He added softly, "I don't want to be a burden," with a hint of something deeper, something unsaid in his voice. The air was heavy with the silence between them. Although Steffy was unsure of how to overcome the barrier Finn had put up, she was confident that something had changed and that their relationship might never be the same if she didn't discover it quickly. Chapter 4. The Imperceptible Stress. The tension in their relationship only became more apparent as the days went by. Steffy could see it in Finn's eyes, which were no longer filled with the same warmth and love as before. He was always exhausted and frequently sidetracked by his phone or the stress of his medical obligations. Unlike before, he no longer looked on her for intimacy or support. However, Finn's weariness was the true issue, not his distraction. Steffi was aware that a change was necessary if they were to remain together as a pair. Steffi, who had always taken pride in being in charge of her life, felt powerless suddenly. Despite her best efforts to maintain a balance between her work and family life, Finn appeared to be drifting further away. She had to acknowledge that her spouse had changed from the person he used to be, but would she be able to guide him back? Steffi became increasingly aware that Finn's actions weren't only the product of outside influences as she gave it more thought. Something more profound was going on, an emotional factor that was subtly undermining their bond from the inside out. Steffi could no longer ignore the signs that Finn was exhausted and overburdened by his life's responsibilities. Chapter 5. Coming Together to Rebuild. Steffi didn't take it easy and let everything fall apart. She wasn't prepared to lose Finn easily because she loved him. Now the question was whether Finn would be upfront with her and share his troubles. Did the stress of everything he was going through drive them too far apart, or could they reestablish the solid, harmonious connection they had before? Steffi was aware that the path ahead would not be simple. However, she was committed to supporting Finn and assisting him in rediscovering his passion and strength, and she was prepared to go to any lengths to force him to face the emotional toll his life had put on him. Ultimately, the question still stood: was Finn genuinely sidetracked by the burden of his obligations, or had the emotional toll of it all finally exhausted him beyond saving? Time would tell. However, Steffi was prepared to take on the task because, if she had learned anything from her years of hardship and success, it was that, if you were determined to fight for something, nothing was ever really lost.